I would say the vast majority of the people who come to see me, they need to make a change. They know they need to make a change. They are willing to make a change. It's just hard. And it's hard to find the motivation, and it's hard to keep the motivation. And that future seems like you can't see it. You know, you have a vision of the person that you want to be in the end result, but you can't see a way through to that final destination, to that person. And it's scary. It's scary to just jump into the unknown and go in the direction that you don't want to go. I know that feeling. I've been there.
Welcome to Build Beyond, a podcast designed to challenge and guide you on your health journey so that you can meet your full potential.
Welcome back to the Build Beyond podcast. Today I want to talk about making hard choices and making changes. If you're dealing with pain or chronic pain or injury, or you've just got a health issue and you've moved farther away from your ideal self, change is needed. And I don't think that's revolutionary. I think most people would agree with that. The interesting thing is that most people know that they need to change to get what they want, yet they don't. And then you have to look at the reasons why. And a lot of times the knee-jerk reaction will be that they're just not motivated, or they just don't want to be different, or they don't want to change. And I don't think that's true. I think maybe in some cases it's true. Some people are happy with the way they are. But most people who have an issue, whether it's pain or a health issue, or they're just not where they want to be in life, they do realize that they need to make a change. And so we have to kind of understand the psychology behind why they're not changing. And I'm not good at psychology. I'm not a mental health professional. I didn't study psychology. But a lot of what I do as a healthcare provider, as a chiropractor, as someone who just helps people with pain and helps people get what they want, is that you really have to try and tune in and have empathy. And by empathy, my understanding of, or what I'm talking about when I talk about empathy, I'm talking about seeing the problem from their perspective. And if you really want to do that, if you're not just going to have these pre-programmed responses and these pre-programmed questions, you have to actually actively listen to someone and ask intuitive questions. And rather than trying to see it through my lens, because things can be quite simple, even easy, because I've done this for so long and I've done this before and I've helped so many people and I've been through it myself, rather than seeing it from my perspective, the goal is to see it from other people's perspective. And I think that maybe I can help you if you will take a second to see something from my perspective. And I want to share with you something that had a huge impact on my life when I was younger. I spent a good chunk of my youth in the Marine Corps, and I remember I had come back from a deployment, and I had accepted a promotion, and I was up for orders. So I was going to move somewhere to another unit, probably to another base, probably to another part of the country, or maybe even another part of the world. I didn't know. And at the time, we got to meet with what they called a monitor. So it was a more senior Marine who was assigned to us to try and fit us, supposedly it was we were told to take our preferences and see what was available and see if they could mix and match. So I met with my monitor and I told him what I wanted, and he said no to all of it. And I said, okay, well, can I make two requests then? My number one request is that I don't want to work with a reserve unit. For those who don't know, for every reserve unit out there, at least in the Marine Corps, there is a small group of active duty Marines who are there 24/7, coordinating everything for them. I did not want to do that. I'd only heard bad things about that. And I said I wanted to be by the coast. I wanted to be by a beach. So a number of weeks later, my monitor got back to me and he said, okay, so you're going to a reserve unit in the Midwest. And it was, literally the exact opposite of it couldn't be farther away from what I wanted. And I was upset. I didn't want to go. And I had a meeting with our executive officer briefly, and we had a really good relationship. So our XO was the second in command. And he said, I don't know if we can get exactly what you want, but we can change that. No worries about that. And we were going to meet later on to discuss what options I had. In between that meeting, I randomly had the opportunity to sit down with our battalion commander. I think he had a bunch of us junior officers together. I don't know if we were eating lunch or it was some type of like education opportunity, but he was just being candid and telling stories. And this lieutenant colonel, I think he was about to get promoted to colonel, if I remember correctly. So he'd been in the Marine Corps for a long time. He'd done a lot of different things. Very experienced infantry officer. And he shared with us something that has stuck with me and actually has only benefited me since. And this is what I want to share with you guys. He said that when he reflected back on his Marine Corps career, the best things that he's ever done and the most growth and the most rewarding experience he's ever had were things that he did not want to do. There were times when he said, I want to go this way, and the Marine Corps said, you're going that way. And he said he wouldn't, if he could go back in time, he would not change anything. And he would tell his younger self that to not make those decisions. Because the best growth opportunities for him and the most rewarding experiences came from the most challenging things that he absolutely did not want to do. He explained it better than I did just now, but I think you get the picture. I thought about that for the rest of the day. And I think later on that day, or maybe the next day, I had another meeting with the XO to change my orders. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to change them. I told them about what our battalion commander had said. And I said, you know what? This is the last thing I want to do, which means it's probably the best thing for me. And so I went. I did something challenging that I absolutely did not want to do. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. Now, every negative thing I heard about working with a reserve unit was 100% true. But the growth opportunities and those struggles were huge. I got to work for the most challenging commander I'd ever worked for. I would say it was a love-hate relationship. But to this day, some of the stuff that I could not stand about working for him, I still do it. I learned so much from that experience. And then when he left, I got to work with probably the best leader I've ever had. I think if you could have me, you could have had me create an avatar of what I wanted out of a commander. I got it. And I didn't even know that this person existed in the Marine Corps. It was unlike anyone I'd ever worked for, and I learned so much. And it was an interesting juxtaposition between the two. While I was at that unit, I got to work with probably the best sergeant major I'd ever worked with. And not just for a good professional relationship. I feel like we had a really nice personal relationship. Probably the closest personal relationship as an officer that I ever had with a senior enlisted Marine. And he helped me out a ton, and we had a lot of fun together. I probably had some of the best junior Marines working with me. I really enjoyed them. A couple, that I still keep in contact with today, and it's been almost a decade. So, from a professional standpoint, I guess I couldn't have asked for anything more. I did get out of the Marine Corps after that and go on to grad school, which had nothing to do with that unit. It was just time to go. And a big part of the reason why it was time to go is that I met my wife in Chicago when I moved to the Midwest, and we got married there. So, had I decided that I don't want to do this hard thing that I don't want to do, this is the exact opposite of what I want to do, and I had the opportunity to get out of it, I would not have grown working for a very challenging battalion commander. I would not have had the pleasure of learning from him, good things and bad things. I would not have had the pleasure of working for my favorite battalion commander. I would not have had the professional relationships with the Marines that I had. I would not have met and worked with the best battalion sergeant major that I could have ever hoped to work for. I would not have had all of the challenging experiences and all the growth opportunities and all the successes that I would have had with that unit, dealing with all of the struggles of working with a reserve unit. And most importantly, I wouldn't have met my wife. We have 2 kids now. I'm happily married with 2 beautiful kids. And that none of that would have happened had I not had that conversation at the right time with the right person and really been receptive to those words and then made a change based on those words. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is because I would say the vast majority of the people who come to see me, they need to make a change. They know they need to make a change. They are willing to make a change. It's just hard. And it's hard to find the motivation and it's hard to keep the motivation. And that future seems like you can't see it. You have a vision of the person that you want to be in the end result, but you can't see a way through to that final destination, to that person. And it's scary. It's scary to just jump into the unknown and go in the direction that you don't want to go. I know that feeling. I've been there. I felt that when I joined the Marines. I felt that pretty much everything I did in the Marine Corps. And I definitely felt that when I decided to accept those orders to the reserve unit in Chicago. And I can tell you from my experience, if you are willing to be empathetic and look at things from my perspective, the hardest things that I've ever done, the most scared and intimidated I've ever been, jumping in and just going for it and knowing that I'll be better on the other side has been, it's all been the best things that it has given me the best things in my life. And to be fair, I didn't do any of this alone. I had help because obviously in the Marine Corps, we have this huge team. I had a family, I have parents, I have people supporting me. So I can't stand here and say that, I did it all on my own. You should do it on your own too. No, that's absolutely not true. And that's why we have healthcare providers. And that's really what I do. If someone comes in, they talk to me, they tell me what's going on, and we talk about all these things and we map it out together. And then I'm a guide. I walk with them. I don't just point them in a direction. We go step by step. And I had that in the Marine Corps. I've had that in life. I have that now with my wife. And I like to provide that to people. I mean, a lot of people have spouses and kids, and they have people they can depend on. But if you're coming to see someone like me, you need help. I mean, you're asking for help and you're asking for guidance. And I think as long as you're receptive, you need to be receptive to doing the hard things and going into the unknown and going towards the things that kind of scare you, because on the other side, that's where all the great stuff is. And you don't have to do it alone, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I hope this story helps. It was probably one of the most impactful things that's ever happened to me. And it was a subtle, off the cuff conversation that may have lasted 90 seconds, probably just in passing as the battalion commander was leaving whatever it was we were doing. And I don't know that he ever realized, I mean, I never told him the impact that had. I don't know. Maybe he's listening to this podcast. Maybe I should reach out to him, let him know, and say thank you. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you need anything. All right.